Welcome, dear listeners, to our scary stories. In the deepest recesses of the night, when shadows play tricks and every creak sends shivers down your spine, we offer tales to amplify that delicious dread. Prepare to plunge into a narrative woven from your darkest nightmares. Sit tight, breathe deep, and let the fear embrace you. The first thing Lucas noticed when he unfolded the parchment-like acceptance letter was its weight. The paper felt unusually heavy, embossed with a silvery crest depicting a gnarled tree with roots that seemed to spread and vanish into mist. Below it, in deep black ink, read, Aeon University. Lucas' hazel eyes widened in amazement. Aeon University wasn't just any school, it was a legend. Tales whispered in academic circles spoke of its unparalleled library, its distinguished professors who published works that other scholars could only dream of understanding. Yet, it was also shrouded in stories of its mysterious admissions process and secluded location. His fingers traced the immaculate handwriting, reading of his acceptance, and the accolades his previous academic pursuits had earned him. The letter smelled of aged wood and a touch of lavender, unusual for official correspondence. The following weekend, Lucas stood at the foot of a pathway leading up to the gates of Aeon University. Towering hills surrounded him, blanketed in evergreen trees so dense they seemed to swallow the horizon whole. The damp, earthy scent of the forest met him, interwoven with the crispness of the approaching evening. Birds sang their final songs of the day, but there was another sound, something distant, a faint melodious humming, almost like a choir. It seemed to emanate from the university itself. Mist hung in the air, curling around Lucas's ankles as he began his ascent. The cobblestone pathway was slick with dew, each stone meticulously placed and moss-covered from years of being undisturbed. The towering iron gates loomed ahead, intertwined with creeping vines and roses in hues of deep red and midnight blue. The roses carried a perfume so intoxicating that Lucas felt a wave of serenity just inhaling it. Beyond the gates, Aeon University was a marvel. Centuries-old Gothic spires clawed at the twilight sky. Walls of ivy framed vast windows with leaded glass, their colors muted but intricate. A tower clock echoed in the distance, its resonance more like a lullaby than a mere chime. Lucas approached the main building, the entrance guarded by two massive stone statues, each depicting scholars in deep thought, books in hand and quills poised. Their expressions were so detailed, so fraught with emotion, that Lucas half expected them to spring to life. Lucas, I presume. A voice made Lucas jump. An elderly man, wearing robes that flowed like liquid shadows, had approached from his left. His skin was pale, contrasting sharply with his deep black eyes. I am Professor Lorien. I've been expecting you. Lucas, taken aback, managed to reply, Yes, sir. I received the acceptance letter, but I never applied. Lorien chuckled, a sound that seemed to harmonize with the distant humming. That's how it always begins here. Aeon chooses its students, not the other way around. Come, let me show you what awaits. Lucas hesitated, but then followed. As they walked, the university unveiled its beauty and age in every corner, courtyards with fountains that seemed to gleam under the moonlight, corridors with arches showcasing the art of epochs gone by, and rooms filled with the soft glow of candlelight. But for all its splendor, a cold unease settled in Lucas's heart. Every shadow seemed to move, every echo seemed to whisper, and the weight of countless secrets seemed to press down on him. As they ventured deeper into the heart of Aeon, Lucas couldn't help but wonder, what had he truly been chosen for? And at what cost would this chapter of his life come? Lucas's first evening at Aeon University was filled with hushed conversations, the rustling of fine stationery, and the soft steps of students moving through the stone corridors. In the grand hall, shimmering chandeliers hung low, casting a dim, golden hue. Large portraits of past scholars and founders observed the new entrants from the walls, their eyes almost expectant. It was here that Lucas met Mark and Claire. Mark, with his dark, curly hair and ever-present book in hand, was engrossed in a conversation about the Byzantine Empire's mysteries. Claire, on the other hand, was sitting at a corner table, her delicate fingers smudging shades of gray and blue onto paper, creating a haunting landscape. You're Lucas, aren't you? Mark approached him first, his sharp green eyes scanning Lucas with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Heard about the chosen one from Lorien. Lucas chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I wouldn't put it that way, but yes, that's me. Soon, Claire joined, her eyes, a deep shade of violet, twinkling with intrigue. Aeon's quite the enigma. You'll see things here that might seem out of place. The three quickly became inseparable. As the days turned to evenings, they began noticing oddities. Firstly, the orientation sessions, to their surprise, always began after sunset. The world outside those thick stone walls was always cloaked in velvety darkness, with moonlight being the only illumination. One day, as Mark remarked on this peculiarity, Claire added, "Have you noticed the windows? There's something off." Sure enough, the next time Lucas looked out of a window, expecting to see his own reflection juxtaposed against the night, he saw nothing. It was as though the glass swallowed his visage whole. Then there were the students with the crimson insignia, a stark emblem against their dark robes. These students moved with an air of authority, their conversations low and secretive. They seemed older, more distant, and mingled in separate, more secluded lounges. But what unsettled Lucas most was Dr. Valerian's interest in him. Dr. Valerian, with his alabaster skin and silver hair, was an enigma. Every time Lucas entered a room, those penetrating ice-blue eyes would fixate on him, studying him like an artifact. Once, while Lucas was engrossed in an old manuscript, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder, only to find Dr. Valerian standing behind him. His lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You have a bright future here, Lucas," he had whispered, leaving Lucas with a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty corridors. Late one night, as the three friends huddled in Mark's chamber, Lucas finally voiced his unease. "Why is Dr. Valerian so interested in me? I'm just another student." Claire, her usually calm demeanor displaying a hint of concern, replied, "He doesn't just choose anyone. There's always a reason." She glanced at her sketch pad, where she'd drawn an eerily accurate depiction of Dr. Valerian, his eyes even more haunting on paper. Mark, ever the logical historian, interjected, "We need to find out more about this place, about him. Knowledge is power." Determined, the trio decided they would uncover Aeon's mysteries, not realizing that some secrets might be better left in the shadows. The air at Aeon University was thick with the scent of old parchment and musty velvet drapes. As Lucas, Mark, and Claire delved deeper into the rhythm of the institution, they overheard whispers about the special sessions. These were secretive meetings, taking place in the bowels of the university, beyond the vast oak doors at the end of the west corridor. Only a few ever entered, and fewer discussed what transpired within. One morning, Lucas was greeted by a sight that made his heart sink, Claire's name etched in golden letters on the ornate blackboard in the grand hall, signaling her selection for the upcoming special session. Mark pulled him aside, his voice shaky. "Lucas, I've seen this before." They returned different, distant, with that dreaded crimson insignia on their robes. They never talk about what happened. It's like they can't. Desperation building, Lucas and Mark began their covert mission. They searched the university's extensive library, poring over ancient tomes and records. As they were about to give up, Mark stumbled upon an aged leather-bound book titled Foundations of Aeon. Inside, the history of Aeon University unraveled. Lucas read aloud, his voice echoing in the silence. Founded under the waxing crescent moon, Aeon University was the vision of an ancient vampire lineage. Tired of the mindless pursuit of human prey, they sought a deeper connection, a union of minds, to understand humanity's true essence. Mark interjected, "It says here that these vampires were intrigued by the richness of human intellect, emotion, and creativity. They founded Aeon not just to feed, but to study, learn from, and perhaps even appreciate the human psyche." But what of the special sessions? Lucas pondered aloud. Continuing their search, they found a diary, its pages filled with delicate, cursive handwriting. The journal belonged to a former student, Alina. Her entries detailed her experiences, her growing suspicions, and finally, her selection for the special session. Lucas read an excerpt, "Tonight is the night. I've been chosen. Fear mingles with curiosity. What lies behind those doors? Whispers tell tales of communion, a meeting of minds, where we are not just seen as food but as equals. But at what price does this communion come?" However, the subsequent pages were smeared, the words fading into illegible smudges, but one phrase stood out repeatedly, "the price of understanding." As the evening approached, Lucas and Mark, determined to protect Claire, hatched a plan to observe the special session discreetly. Equipped with cloaks borrowed from the drama club, they would blend into the shadows. Hidden in the alcoves, they watched. Claire, led by Dr. Valerian, approached the oak doors. Before they swung open, Lucas and Mark caught a glimpse of the chamber within. It was bathed in a soft, crimson light with elaborate chandeliers overhead. In the room's center, a magnificent round table was set, around which sat figures in deep crimson robes, their features obscured. The doors closed, leaving the duo in overwhelming silence and dread. They had uncovered a fragment of Aeon's mystery, but the full truth of the special sessions remained elusive. And as dawn approached, the wait to see Claire's return, possibly changed forever, was agonizing. Lucas stood outside the heavy wooden door to Dr. Valerian's office. The brass handle was cold to the touch, its intricate patterns tingling against his palm. Taking a deep breath, he entered. The room was vast, its high ceilings lost in a dance of shadows. Walls lined with shelves were crammed with artifacts, relics from a time long past. Some were immediately identifiable: a quill from the 15th century, a faded map depicting lands unknown, a chalice with detailed engravings. Others were more obscure, emitting a subtle energy that sent shivers down Lucas's spine. Each item seemed to hold a piece of history, a moment frozen in time. Dr. Valerian sat behind a grand desk, the surface of which was covered in papers and open books. He looked up, his piercing eyes instantly locking onto Lucas. "Ah, young scholar, so glad you could join me," his voice a blend of charm and something more sinister. Lucas, taking a moment to steady himself, replied, "You wanted to see me, Professor." Dr. Valerian gestured to a chair opposite him. "Sit, Lucas. I've been watching your progress, and I must say I'm impressed. You have a certain spark, a brilliance, if you will." The room seemed to grow colder as Lucas settled into the chair. "Thank you, Professor. But why have you called me here?" Valerian leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You see, Lucas, Aeon University is not just about academics. It's about understanding, a bridge between our two worlds. Vampires have existed alongside humans for millennia, often in conflict. But we believe that by studying exceptional humans like you, we can forge a path of coexistence." Lucas felt a twinge of unease. Coexistence, but at what cost? Valerian's lips curled into a smile, revealing a hint of his sharp canines. "Every connection has its price. For centuries, I've fed on more than just the life force of humans. I've taken their intellect, their passions, their essence. It makes me, well, more evolved. And in you, Lucas, I sense a brilliance that I've not encountered in ages." The weight of Valerian's words bore down on Lucas. The realization hit him hard. The special sessions, the changes in students, and now this revelation. It was all a means to an end. An end where Dr. Valerian aimed to become the most powerful being, not by mere blood but by consuming the very essence that made humans unique. Lucas tried to maintain his composure, masking the horror bubbling within. "And what if I refuse to be a part of this?" Valerian leaned in, his cold breath caressing Lucas's face. "Then, my dear boy, you will find that there are fates far worse than simply becoming prey." The silence that followed was chilling. Lucas knew he was ensnared in a web far larger and more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The path forward was uncertain, but one thing was clear. He was now at the heart of Aeon's darkest secrets. The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, giving way to a moonlit night. A gentle breeze rustled the evergreen trees surrounding the university grounds. Mark and Lucas waited anxiously in the main courtyard, the echoes of their conversation mingling with the distant hoot of an owl. Suddenly, from the winding path that led to the university's secluded chambers, a figure emerged. Claire, but not the Claire they remembered. Her once vibrant hair now cascaded over her shoulders in a shade darker, almost obsidian. The once expressive eyes, which danced with life and creativity, now shimmered with an unsettling crimson hue. It was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Mark hesitated. "Claire, is that really you?" Claire turned to look at him, her face expressionless. "Of course, it's me. Who else would it be?" Her voice carried a different tone, colder, almost detached. Lucas gulped, trying to hide his unease. "We were worried about you. The session. You were gone for days." She tilted her head slightly, studying them as though they were mere subjects in her next art piece. "Time feels different now." Mark, desperate to connect with his friend, tried a different approach. "Show us your latest artwork, Claire. Let us understand." Claire nodded slowly, leading them to her personal studio. The room was dim, lit only by candles, their flickering light casting eerie shadows on the walls. But it was the canvases that took their breath away. Each artwork was a window into darkness, a manifestation of dread. Twisted figures, landscapes of torment, and faces trapped in silent screams. Each stroke was meticulous, capturing anguish in its rawest form. Lucas, with a sinking heart, whispered, "These are intense, Claire." She looked at them, almost proudly. "They are a reflection of my new reality." Mark, unable to contain his emotions, stepped closer. "Claire, this isn't you. Whatever they did to you during the session, we'll find a way to reverse it." Her crimson eyes locked onto Mark's. "Why would I want to go back? This power, this clarity, it's intoxicating." She pulled back her sleeve to reveal the crimson insignia, freshly etched onto her pale skin. Lucas exchanged a glance with Mark. They both understood the gravity of the situation. This insignia wasn't just a badge of honor or a symbol of academic excellence. It was a mark of turning, a rite of passage into the dark realm of vampirism. The session had not just tapped into Claire's mind, it had claimed her very soul. The nights seemed darker, and the corridors of Aeon University more foreboding than ever before. Mark had disappeared, the second of Luca's allies to be summoned for a special session. The hallways felt cold and lonely without Mark's logical analysis to balance out Luca's emotion. It was now solely up to him to find answers and, if possible, salvation. Lucas had spent countless nights delving into the forbidden sections of the university's vast library, seeking anything that could give him an edge. Through dust-covered manuscripts and cryptic journals, he unearthed the lore surrounding the full moon's effects on vampires. It was a glimmer of hope, a brief period when their strength ebbed, leaving them more vulnerable. He also found references to ancient symbols and relics that had the potential to weaken, and, in some cases, repel these nightmarish creatures. With each night that passed, Luca's room transformed. Sacred glyphs were painted on the walls, and old talismans hung from the ceiling, each casting a gentle glow that seemed to defy the engulfing darkness of the university. The night of the full moon was fast approaching. Luca's heart raced with a blend of anticipation and dread. Clad in a long coat with various relics secured inside and an amulet around his neck, he felt like a warrior of old, preparing to face a formidable adversary. Dr. Valerian's quarters were at the university's highest tower. The climb was steep, with every step echoing his mounting trepidation. A wooden door at the top bore an ornate crest, a bat enfolded by the moon. Taking a deep breath, Lucas knocked. The door creaked open to reveal Dr. Valerian, looking less regal than usual. His usually piercing gaze seemed subdued under the luminous moonlight filtering through the vast windows. "Lucas," Valerian intoned, his voice betraying a hint of surprise. "I must admit, I wasn't expecting you." "I imagine there's a lot you weren't expecting," Lucas replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Like me discovering what you truly are and what you've done to Claire and Mark." Valerian's gaze hardened. Knowledge can be a dangerous thing, especially in the hands of the young and reckless. Lucas pulled out one of the ancient relics, its surface etched with symbols. The room's temperature seemed to drop. "I won't let you continue this. I won't become another one of your experiments." Valerian sighed, his eyes darting to the relic. "You might have some ancient toys, but do you truly believe they can stop me? For Mark, Claire, and everyone else you've taken, I have to try," Lucas said with determination. A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the distant howl of the wind outside. The showdown between student and ancient being had begun. The underground chamber was a realm of its own, a world untouched by time. The room's high ceiling was punctuated with circular skylights, allowing the radiant full moon to cast its silvery glow. Mirrors were strategically positioned, multiplying the moonlight's intensity, making the entire chamber shimmer and dance with ethereal beauty. Lucas stood in the center, his every breath visible in the cold air. The relics clutched tightly in his hand felt like his lifeline in this alien realm. Across the room, Valerian's form seemed to meld from the shadows, his pale skin glowing eerily in the reflected moonlight. "So, this is where it ends," Valerian mused, his voice echoing throughout the chamber. "One way or another," Lucas replied, his voice filled with resolve. With the speed of someone much younger, Valerian lunged. Lucas, relying on the knowledge he'd garnered, channeled the power of the relics. A bright light emanated, causing Valerian to hiss and retreat momentarily. The mirrors magnified the intensity, making Valerian shield his eyes. As the dance of hunter and prey continued, Lucas used every ounce of his intelligence, weaving in and out of the mirror's paths, using them to deflect and amplify his defenses. Valerian, for all his age and power, found himself momentarily disoriented by the constantly shifting maze of light. But as the minutes turned to hours, Lucas's energy waned. Each movement became more sluggish, each incantation less potent. Sensing this, Valerian's confidence grew. He was the embodiment of patience, having waited centuries for moments like these. Then, just as Lucas thought he might have a semblance of advantage, the entrance to the chamber groaned open. Two figures walked in, their steps synchronized, their crimson eyes devoid of humanity. Claire and Mark had arrived, their once vibrant personalities now overshadowed by a vampire's primal urge. Lucas's heart sank. Facing Valerian was one thing, but confronting his transformed friends was a nightmare he hadn't prepared for. Claire, with her newly acquired supernatural grace, moved first, her fingers reaching out like talons. Mark followed suit, his historian's gaze replaced with a predatory glare. Cornered and outnumbered, Lucas felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. His hope, once a blazing flame, now flickered precariously in the chilling heart of Aeon University. A stifling silence enveloped the chamber as Lucas, surrounded by beings who once represented friendship and mentorship, stood isolated. The silvery glow from the mirrors painted Claire and Mark's faces in sharp relief, accentuating their loss of humanity. Tears formed in Lucas's eyes as he looked desperately at Claire. "Claire," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "Please remember the nights we spent talking about our dreams, our futures. You can't let this darkness consume you." Claire's face contorted, a struggle evident. For a brief moment, the crimson hue of her eyes dimmed, replaced by the soft blue Lucas remembered. She took a step back, her gaze locked onto Lucas's, a myriad of emotions playing out. "Mark," Lucas continued, turning to his other friend, "recall the histories we explored, the secrets of the past we unraveled together. Don't let that be in vain." Mark's expression twitched, his demeanor momentarily shifting from predator to the keen historian Lucas knew. But Valerian, ever observant, sensed the wavering control. "Enough of this," he snarled, sweeping his hand in a broad arc. A force, unseen but powerful, sent Lucas sprawling backward, pinning him to the cold stone floor. Claire and Mark, their brief moments of clarity fading, returned to Valerian's side, acting as sentinels to his immense power. "My dear Lucas," Valerian murmured, circling the immobilized young scholar, "I won't turn you. No, your fate will be far more unique. A mind like yours, forever trapped within these walls, a testament to my power over humanity." Lucas tried to muster a response, but the weight of Valerian's power was suffocating. Instead, he simply looked up, defiant to the last, his gaze a silent challenge. Valerian leaned close, whispering in Lucas's ear, "Welcome to eternity." The world began to blur for Lucas. The once vibrant university now took on a sinister glow. The laughter of students, the hum of intellectual pursuits, was replaced by an echoing silence as Lucas's consciousness faded, leaving him trapped in his own mind, wandering the hallowed halls of Aeon University forevermore. As the final words echo and the remnants of terror linger, we conclude yet another chilling tale on our scary stories. Let the mysteries of Aeon University and the horrors within its walls keep you company in the solitary hours of the night. Until we meet again, remember, the most haunting stories are often those that remain just beyond the reach of understanding. Sleep well, or at least try to. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.